October 12th, 539 BC. Babylon, the greatest city on earth. The gates are opening, not because the walls have been breached, not because the army outside has broken through the 85-meter ramparts that have never, in living memory, been scaled by any enemy. The gates are opening because the people inside are opening them. A city of over 200,000 people, the hanging gardens above their heads, the Ishtar Gate blazing blue behind them, the Euphrates threading silver through the city's heart, is walking toward an approaching army with something that looks, from a distance, like relief. A citizen standing at the gate watches the soldiers come. They are not burning anything. They are not taking anyone. Their king rides at the front, and he is not looking at the city the way conquerors look at cities. Why does the most powerful city in the world open its own gates? Before we answer that, consider the numbers, because the numbers are the only way to understand the scale of what is about to happen, and what already has. At its peak, the empire built by the man entering Babylon today will cover 7.5 million square kilometers across 3 continents. It will contain 50 million people, 44% of the entire human population alive on Earth at that time. No empire in recorded history, before this one or after it, has ever controlled a higher share of humanity. Not Rome, which peaked at 28%. Not the British Empire at 26%. Not the Mongols at 25%. Not Alexander, not Napoleon, no one. The man who built it started as the king of a minor vassal state that no serious power in the ancient world had heard of. He had no navy, no dynastic wealth accumulated over centuries, no divine endorsement recognized by anyone beyond his own borders. He had one idea, a single, strange, unprecedented idea. So alien to the world he was born into that when his enemies first heard about it, they thought it was a trick. It was not a trick. This is how. 550 BC. The known world has 4 pillars, and they divide everything between them. To the north and east, the Median Empire, the dominant power in Western Asia, builders of a great walled capital at Ecbatana, the kingdom that crushed Assyria and rearranged the map of the ancient world. They are old, they are established, they expect deference, and they receive it. To the west, the Lydian Empire, ruled by Croesus. The name still survives in the English language, rich as Croesus, which tells you everything you need to know about his treasury. Lydia minted the first coins in history. Gold washed out of the river Pactolus in Lydian territory. Croesus spent it building alliances, buying armies, and consulting oracles. GK is the kind of man who assumes the gods are paying particular attention to him. To the south, Babylon. The Neo-Babylonian Empire under Nebuchadnezzar II has recently destroyed Jerusalem, dismantled Solomon's temple stone by stone, taken the sacred vessels, the gold lampstands, the bronze pillars, the altar, and carried them back to Babylon. The Jewish people have been in captivity for nearly a generation, 60 years of exile, the temple gone, the city gone, 70 years before it ends. And Egypt, eternal and implacable, watching from across the desert. This is what conquest means in 550 BC. You destroy the city, you enslave the people, you take their gods, literally, the idols and sacred objects, and install them in your capital as trophies. You erase the language from public life, replace the law, rename the streets. Conquest is obliteration with administration. Every power in the world operates on this logic. It has always been this logic. It is the only logic anyone has ever used. Into this world, a vassal king named Cyrus II of Persia. His kingdom of Anshan sits inside the Median Empire, technically subject to it, paying tribute to it. His entire territory can be crossed on horseback in a single day. He has a small army, no fleet, no powerful allies. He is, by every metric the ancient world uses to measure such things, a minor figure. He is going to change every rule of this world, starting with the one nobody thought was a rule. 550 BC. Cyrus's first target is his own overlords. The Median Empire under King Astyages is larger, older, and more experienced than anything Cyrus commands. The Medes have been the dominant power in the region for generations. By conventional military logic, this campaign should be swift and decisive, in Astyages' favor. The armies meet, the battle begins. Then something happens that ancient military history has no precedent for. Mid-battle, the Median army switches sides. Not a unit, not a regiment. A substantial portion of Astyages' own force walks across the field and joins Cyrus. The battle ends not with a decisive charge or a flanking maneuver, but with a king standing nearly alone, watching his own soldiers choose someone else. Why? Because in the years before this battle, every Median soldier Cyrus had taken prisoner had been released. Not ransomed, not enslaved, released. Treated with dignity, fed, sent home. Word had traveled. When Median soldiers looked across the battlefield at Cyrus's army, they were looking at men who had been prisoners and come back whole. The choice, when it came, was not difficult. Astyages is captured. Cyrus does not execute him. He does not display him in chains or humiliate him in the public square. He gives him a palace. He absorbs the Median nobility into his own court and gives them positions of authority. The conquered Median Empire does not disappear. It becomes part of the machinery of Cyrus's growing state, its administrators still administering, its soldiers now his soldiers, its knowledge now his knowledge. To the west, the richest man in the world is watching all of this and drawing exactly the wrong conclusion. 547 BC, Croesus of Lydia has a problem, and his problem is that he does not know it yet. He has watched Cyrus defeat the Medes, and he has decided, with the confidence of a man who has never been seriously wrong about anything expensive, that Cyrus must be stopped before he grows larger. This is reasonable. What follows is not. Croesus consults the oracle at Delphi. He sends gold and asks his question. Should he march against Persia? The oracle's answer comes back in the precise, double-edged language Delphi has made famous. If you cross the river Halys, a great empire will fall. Croesus hears what he wants to hear. He crosses the river Halys with his army and meets Cyrus at the Battle of Pteria. The engagement is a stalemate. No decisive victor, heavy losses on both sides. Croesus retreats to his capital of Sardis. He sends word to his allies, Egypt, Babylon, Sparta, asking them to regroup and march together in spring. He dismisses his mercenaries for the winter season. No one campaigns in winter. It is simply not done. Cyrus follows him immediately. Cyrus marches in winter, across terrain no ancient army uses in winter, covering distance at a pace that Croesus's scouts cannot believe until the Persian army is already outside the walls of Sardis. Croesus's allies are gone for the season. His mercenaries are gone. He has the Lydian cavalry, renowned across the ancient world as the finest horsemen alive, and he rides them out to meet Cyrus on the plain. Cyrus places camels at the front of his line. Horses, encountering the scent and shape of camels, panic. The Lydian cavalry, the force Croesus has built his military doctrine around, breaks and scatters on first contact. Sardis falls in 14 days. A great empire has fallen. Croesus' own. The oracle was precisely right. Croesus is captured. Cyrus does not execute him. He makes him an advisor, a living exhibit in the transformation that is becoming Cyrus's signature. Conquered kings become counselors. Absorbed enemies become administrators. Babylon is watching. Babylon is next. And Babylon, for the first time, is uncertain. 539 BC. We are back at the gates. To understand what Babylon is, you have to understand that there is no precedent for it. The city has walls 85 meters high and 30 meters thick, wide enough to drive a 4-horse chariot along the top. A moat. The Euphrates running directly through the city, entering and exiting through river gates reinforced with iron grates. Inside, the Hanging Gardens, the ziggurat of Achaemenid that may be the origin of the Tower of Babel. The Ishtar Gate, glazed in brilliant blue lapis lazuli, its surface alive with golden lions and mythological dragons, the most spectacular entrance quay on Earth. Population, over 200,000 people. This is not a city you take by assault. Carthage, Rome, Athens, none of them are this. Babylon is the word for city in the ancient imagination. The king of Babylon, Nabonidus, has managed to make himself catastrophically unpopular. He has neglected the cult of Marduk, the city's patron god, the theological center of Babylonian identity, in favor of the moon god Sin, which the priests and citizens view as something between an insult and a sacrilege. He has imposed forced labor. The city is unhappy in the particular way that cities become unhappy when the social contract has been conspicuously broken by the person who is supposed to uphold it. Cyrus does not attack the walls. He doesn't try to scale them or batter them or starve the city into submission. Instead, he finds the Euphrates. His engineers divert the river upstream, channeling it into canals, dropping the water level inside the city. The river gates, designed to stop boats, sit open on a flowing river. When the water drops, the river gates rise above the waterline. Cyrus's soldiers wade through the riverbed into the city, through gates that were never designed to be locked against a dry riverbed, because no one had ever done this before. When they emerge inside the walls of Babylon, the city does not fight. The Babylonian people, furious at Nabonidus, primed by the stories already circulating about what Cyrus had done in Media and Lydia, open the inner gates themselves. Cyrus enters Babylon on October 12, 539 BC. The city's own records document it. He enters in peace amidst joy and jubilation. Not one building burns, not one temple is touched. Cyrus rides directly to the temple of Marduk, not his own god, Babylon's god, and pays his respects. What he does next, no conqueror in history has ever done. Cyrus issues a decree, not a proclamation of dominance, not a list of tribute demands or a catalog of what the conquered owe the conqueror, something no one in the ancient world has a category for. He frees every enslaved people in the Babylonian Empire, all of them. The Babylonians had, over the course of their empire, conquered dozens of nations and taken their people. Cyrus tells them they can go home. He gives back their gods, the sacred idols Babylon had seized and kept as trophies, the theological spoils of generations of conquest. He funds the rebuilding of their temples. He restores their sanctuaries. He does not ask for loyalty in return, or at least not immediately. He simply ends the system. Among the peoples freed from Babylonian captivity, the Jews, taken from Jerusalem 70 years earlier by Nebuchadnezzar II, who had destroyed Solomon's temple and carried its sacred vessels back to Babylon. Cyrus returns the vessels. He frees the Jewish people to return to their homeland. He allocates Persian treasury funds for the rebuilding of the Second Temple in Jerusalem, on the same site as Solomon's temple, which his enemy destroyed. All of this, every provision, every freed people, every restored god, is inscribed on a clay cylinder approximately 23 centimeters long, in Akkadian cuneiform, buried in the foundations of the Temple of Marduk. The inscription describes a king who improved the lives of citizens, repatriated displaced peoples, restored temples and sanctuaries, and returned divine statues to their homes. It describes a king who calls himself not a conqueror, but a shepherd, who says that Marduk, Babylon's god, not his, walked beside him. The Hebrew Bible calls Cyrus Mashiach, the Anointed One, Messiah. It is the only time in the Hebrew Bible that this title is given to a non-Jewish figure. He is named by the prophet Isaiah 150 years before his birth. He is the conqueror who built the Second Temple, the man who destroyed Jerusalem, Nebuchadnezzar, and the man who rebuilt it, Cyrus, stand on opposite ends of the same 70-year exile, and the second one is Persian. The cylinder was buried in Babylon for 2,478 years before anyone found it. By the time Cyrus's son Cambyses adds Egypt, and his successor Darius I consolidates and expands the whole, the empire looks like this: 7.5 million square kilometers. Modern-day Iran, Turkey, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, Egypt, Libya, GK, Pakistan, parts of India, GK, Bulgaria, Romania, the Caucasus, Central Asia as far as the Aral Sea. 3 continents, 50 million people, 44% of the world's population. To administer it, the empire is divided into 20 satrapies, regional provinces, each governed by a satrap, a civilian administrator. But each satrap also answers to a separate military commander and a royal inspector who reports directly to the king. 3 separate chains of authority, none of them able to act without the others. A system of institutional checks built 2,000 years before Montesquieu named the concept. Darius builds the Royal Road, 2,700 kilometers of maintained highway from Sardis in western Turkey to Susa in southwestern Iran. A royal messenger on horseback can traverse its entire length in 7 days, changing horses at way stations placed every 25 kilometers. The Greek historian Herodotus writes of these couriers. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night prevents these couriers from completing their designated stages. In 1914, that sentence, Herodotus's description of the Persian postal system, was carved in stone above the entrance of the New York City General Post Office on 8th Avenue. It is still there. It is, informally, the motto of the United States Postal Service. The most famous sentence about mail delivery in the English-speaking world is a description, written 2,500 years ago, of a Persian institution built by the successors of Cyrus the Great. The Roman Empire at its peak controlled 28% of the world's population. The British Empire at its peak controlled 26%. The Mongol Empire, 25%. The Achaemenid Empire at its peak, 44%. Nothing else is close. Not then, not since. 330 BC, a 22-year-old Macedonian king named Alexander arrives at the eastern edge of the Greek world with 40,000 soldiers and turns east. He is brilliant, driven, and in a profound hurry. He defeats Darius III at Issus. He defeats him again at Gaugamela. He takes Persepolis, the imperial capital, the city of 100 columns, the ceremonial heart of the Achaemenid world, and burns it. The exact reasons historians still debate. Revenge for Xerxes burning Athens 150 years earlier. A drunken decision at the end of a long feast. Perhaps both at once. Whatever the cause, the most magnificent city in the Persian Empire burns in a single night. 220 years after Cyrus founded the dynasty that built it. It takes Alexander 11 years to dismantle what Cyrus built over 20. This is not a ratio that flatters Alexander. But before he leaves Persia, Alexander does one thing that his military genius cannot explain, and his ego cannot quite account for. He travels to Pasargadae, Cyrus's first capital, the city he built when he was still only the king of a minor state nobody had heard of. Cyrus's tomb is there, a stepped stone platform topped by a small gabled chamber. Modest for a man who owned half the world. Alexander finds it vandalized by his own soldiers. He orders it restored immediately. He stands before the tomb and pays his respects to the man whose empire he has just spent 11 years destroying. What exactly Alexander said there, the sources do not agree. That he went and stood and was silent for a time, that part they agree on. The historian Charles Freeman writes, "In scope and extent, Cyrus's achievements ranked far above those of Alexander, who demolished the empire but failed to provide any stable alternative. Alexander's empire fragments within a generation of his death. The Achaemenid system he demolished, the satrapies, the roads, the postal system, the administrative logic, gets reassembled by his successors because nothing else works as well." A British archaeologist named Hormuzd Rassam is excavating the ruins of Babylon when his team uncovers a clay cylinder, cracked but intact, buried in the foundations of a temple that had been underground for over 2 millennia. The cuneiform inscriptions are translated. The world begins to understand what it has found. The Cyrus cylinder sits today in room 52 of the British Museum in London. Iran has repeatedly requested its return, arguing that it is a foundational document of Persian civilization and belongs in the country of its origin. Britain has repeatedly declined. A replica stands at the United Nations headquarters in New York, presented by the Iranian government in 1971. The principles inscribed on it, freedom from slavery, the right to return to one's homeland, the restoration of property, religious tolerance, parallel the first 4 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations in 1948. 2,487 years separate the two documents. The gap between them contains the fall of Persia, the rise and fall of Rome, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, 2 world wars, and the Holocaust. And still, the principles required restating. Thomas Jefferson studied Cyrus the Great. His annotated copy of Xenophon's Cyropedia, an ancient Greek biography of Cyrus, is displayed at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., alongside a replica of the cylinder. Historians who study the intellectual sources of the American founding have noted that the Cyropedia was one of the most widely read books among the founders, a manual on governance, on the relationship between rulers and the ruled, on the idea that a king's legitimacy derives not from conquest, but from the welfare of his people. Today, tens of thousands of Iranians travel every year to Pasargadae, to the stepped stone tomb in the plain. The modest chamber on top, the inscription that once read, "O man, whoever you are and wherever you come from, for I know that you will come. I am Cyrus, son of Cambyses, who founded the empire of the Persians. Grudge me not, therefore, this little earth that covers my body." Many of them do not come only to honor him. They come to stand at his grave and protest a government that claims his legacy while dismantling everything he stood for. They hold signs. They speak his name. They do this in the shadow of a tomb guarded by a state that has declared his memory a national heritage, while executing political prisoners and suppressing religious minorities. A man who freed every enslaved people in the ancient world. A man who guaranteed the right to return. A man who gave back the gods. A man who told a dozen nations, in writing, in a document they could read in their own language, that they were free. His legacy is claimed simultaneously by the Iranian government, the Iranian opposition, the State of Israel, the Jewish people worldwide, the United Nations, and the intellectual tradition of the American founding. No other figure in the ancient world is claimed by this many contradictory inheritors at once. He is everyone's ancestor and no one's property. He built an empire covering 44% of humanity by treating conquered people as people. The cylinder is still in London,